Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to take care of a few housekeeping items before we get started. This session is being recorded. Participant videos are off, so we won't be able to see each other. Switch your screens to speaker view under the viewing options so that you can see the presenters and their slides. And then any questions you have, please submit them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those at the end. I'm Jane Conover. I'm the president of the York County Community Foundation, and I'll be talking with you today in just a moment. We want to make sure everyone's on board, but it is 8 o'clock, so we will get started. Again, I'm Jane Conover. I'm the president of the York County Community Foundation. I'm so thrilled to have you with us today for our Together We Thrive series, where we dig deeper into the issues affecting our community. Our belief is that together we can tackle the toughest issues and make real progress. So thank you for being here today to learn how you can be part of that progress. YCCF's vision is that your county is united, prosperous, and growing with opportunities for everyone to thrive. We seek to inspire transformational philanthropy and grant making. This year, YCCF is embarking on a new direction for our grant making, where we seek to remove barriers to economic mobility so lower income people can build financial security. And of course, that journey to financial stability starts at birth. The Community Foundation's journey to invest in early learning opportunities began in 1993, when it received a grant from the Heinz Endowments and Pew Charitable Trust. That grant resulted in the Focus on Our Future plan for York County. The plan had 3 priorities: improve the quality, affordability, and accessibility of early childhood education in York County. Today, YCCF has $2.7 million in endowment to support early learning. While much progress has been made, there is still an alarming lack of high-quality childcare to meet the need. The COVID pandemic exacerbated the problem of staffing shortages, and many centers had to close their doors. Once again, York County is leading the charge to address the crisis. It will take innovation, resources, and enlightened public policy to make quality early learning a right rather than a privilege. Today, you'll hear about the challenges as well as creative solutions that are again demonstrating that together we will thrive. It is now my pleasure to introduce Adrian Buckner, YCCF's Vice President of Grants and Community Engagement, to share more. Adrian?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jane, so much. As a leader of our grant-making program, my team and I are focused on removing barriers to economic mobility so lower-income people can build financial security. Why this focus? Well, I'm glad you'd asked. The pandemic made it crystal clear that more people are living on the edge than we've ever imagined. In fact, 1/3 of the county households are financially insecure. That means that people are living paycheck to paycheck. They are one car repair away or one health scare away from financial crises. We look to leverage our efforts with many partner organizations like YCEA and the United Way for greater impact. To address this critical need, YCCF has launched the Thrive Grant Program, primarily with dollars from the Fund for York County. Grants will focus on programs and collaboratives that transform lives in our community by helping people with limited income overcome the barriers. Not just to plug a hole, but to holistically address the variety of needs families with lower income face so they can be less dependent on governmental subsidies and programs, and they're able to live a life of economic independence. Today, we want to share with you what we've learned about how childcare is integral to financial security. York County's 2020 Economic Action Plan identified the lack of quality, reliable, and affordable childcare as a major barrier to attending and retaining a stable workforce. In 2022, employers struggled to fill vacant positions in a highly competitive marketplace, while childcare centers are closing due to their inability to hire staff. YCCF is focusing our discretionary dollars and grant making on helping lower income people achieve lasting financial security. Quality childcare is critical to a child's development and to a parent's ability to sustain employment so the whole family is able to thrive. We know that women, Blacks, and Hispanic individuals are more acutely impacted by the lack of quality childcare. In fact, according to the 2022 COVID impact study completed by Fourth Economy for the York County Economic Alliance, we've seen increases in women, Blacks, and Hispanics leaving the workforce entirely. We've also seen a 13.1% decrease in the total number of childcare providers since March 2021. And those are still operating or at 85% capacity due to staffing. This leaves a gap of approximately 6,600 childcare seats in York County. Jane shared with you how we've been addressing the issue of high quality childcare for decades at YCCF. With the work we've been doing most recently, it is what we are here to talk about today. In partnership with local members of the Early Learning Investment Commission and other private funders, in 2021, we launched the York County Early Childhood Educator Awards program. To address the issue of attracting and retaining qualified childcare staff, the York County Early Childhood Educator Awards puts money directly in the pockets of teachers, showing sincere appreciation for their commitment to quality and early learning for children and to continue their own professional development. We also continue to award grants to support early learning through the lens of helping people thrive. We recently awarded a $150,000 grant to the York Day Nursery for training and to expand access to accessible and affordable childcare for working families. Today, you'll hear from those individuals who are bringing these programs to life. Even though YCCF has been engaged in this work for decades, we continue to seek out learning opportunities about the newest challenges facing the early education sector, and we're excited to share those learning opportunities with you. Our first guest speaker is Andrea Heberline, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Early Learning Investment Commission. She has been the Executive Director since 2019. The Pennsylvania Early Learning Investment Commission is a partnership of business leaders dedicated to making the success of every child in Pennsylvania a top priority. They work to improve tomorrow's economy through smart policy and investment in today's young children by fostering public and private sector investments in high-quality early learning programs. Andrea holds a master's in social work from Millersville University and has more than 20 years of childhood experience. Welcome, Andrea.
Good morning. Thank you, Adrian, and thank you to the Community Foundation for having me here this morning. It is just a pleasure. And Adrian, you did a very good job of introducing the Early Learning Investment Commission, and it is certainly my honor to be a part of such an amazing group of business leaders across the Commonwealth. You know, our commissioners really have the ability to communicate to their legislators, their colleagues, their community members in such a different and important way than some other stakeholders do in the community. And so we really just value that business lens when it comes to the importance of high quality early learning and childcare. So when I think about the understanding that our commissioners have, I kind of see it in three pillars. You know, the first pillar is that families absolutely need that quality childcare in order to work, right? And employers need their families, their working families to be able to work. So that's that workforce development piece. But also, we are very fortunate in the field of early childhood to know that longitudinal studies show that when children have access to high quality early learning and high quality childcare, they are much more likely to be prepared for school and life success, particularly in that period of birth to 5, whenever we know that the brain development is just accelerated. And we know that that third pillar of support really comes from having that qualified and equitably compensated early educators and the childcare staff to ensure that we have the childcare that is needed for children, families, businesses, and for our economy. And this is the point that I really wanted to bring out this morning as well, is that there is a real economic cost to Pennsylvania when we do not have enough accessible, affordable, and quality childcare. In 2019 into 2020, right before the pandemic, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Pennsylvania Chamber and the Early Learning Investment Commission partnered to do a study in Pennsylvania to really figure out, like, what is that economic impact? And it was stunning. Almost $3.5 billion is lost annually as a result of insufficient childcare. And the majority of those dollars are impacting businesses directly in the cost of turnover, absenteeism, presenteeism, when employees may be physically at work, but they're distracted. They're worried about childcare, and certainly the lost tax revenue that's experienced when families just cannot go to work and contribute to our economic well-being in the Commonwealth. And quality childcare, and particularly in York, has made some significant strides. On the right-hand part of your screen, you will see that quality in Pennsylvania is through a Keystone Stars quality rating improvement system, with Star 4 being the highest. And there are certainly quite a number of Star 3 and Star 4 sites in York County. York County has done a remarkable job, but across the Commonwealth, there is still such a lack of access and affordability and a lack of quality. And you can see, even in York County, there are still 85% of children under the age of 5 that don't have access to quality early learning and childcare. And that really is pretty standard across the Commonwealth. And as Jane mentioned, the pandemic has just kind of ravaged the childcare field. And so as of now, there are 5 providers that are still temporarily closed as a result of the pandemic, and 56 providers have permanently closed. And across the Commonwealth, as well as in York, about 85 providers are running only at about 85% of their regular enrollment. And it's really due to staffing issues. Staffing is such an incredible challenge, not only because of some of the things that we're going to talk about with equity of pay, but also because it is a really tough job. Think about the last time that, maybe you had to take care of a 3-year-old, and then times that by 10. It is so important, but it's so challenging. And when we take a deeper dive into some of these equity issues, you recognize that we absolutely, as a community, need to do a better job of supporting our early childhood workforce. And equity is reflected in many different components of the early childhood workforce. First of all, the workforce is primarily a workforce of women, and women still in Pennsylvania, but across the nation, only get paid about 78 cents on the dollar for what men earn. So we have inequity there, and that is exasperated anywhere from 10 to 20 cents less for women of color. And think about that too when we think about affordability and think about single women affording childcare when we have this wage discrepancy. We also know that we have such a problem with the salaries of childcare providers. On average, childcare providers earn only $11 to $12 per hour, which is just, what we're finding is that the providers are actually qualifying for benefits. And, that's just, an atrocity. And We also know that in Pennsylvania, the United Way of Pennsylvania did a survey in which they found that those workers, those working families that they qualify as ALICE, asset limited income constrained employed, those workers that are working paycheck to paycheck are really struggling with childcare costs, as you can imagine. And there's over 1 million families that qualify as ALICE in Pennsylvania. So we are definitely struggling to be able to provide such an important service to the children who could certainly benefit the most from these services. And here's just some of the statistics that really back up when we think about the staffing crisis in early childhood. We talked about the very low wages. We talk about the inequity of what qualified degreed teachers in early childhood are making compared to kindergarten teachers, on average 22% less. And also, childcare pay is so low that we're finding that over half of the childcare professionals qualify to receive benefits like SNAP. And the average childcare teacher lives at poverty at nearly twice the rate of Pennsylvania workers in general. And when we think about home-based childcare providers, we also know that the majority of those providers tend to be women of color as well. I wanted to bring up some of the highlights of the Pennsylvania state budget. And I don't need to go through these line item by line item, but what I will say is that we know that public dollars are incredibly important. And especially under, this last administration, we certainly have had significant increases in early learning in our pre-K counts and Head Start. However, our child care line items, which are, salaries, subsidies, and quality, have remained level funded. That is a serious concern for those of us that know that quality childcare is quality early learning. And I wanted to bring this up because we need to know as well that state dollars are incredibly important, but that's not going to be the answer. We need to have federal dollars. In the previous the previous Build Back Better plan that really didn't move anywhere was able to elevate the conversation to that level of the importance of federal dollars supporting childcare wages and quality and access. We need to continue to move that forward as well. And I will say, when we think about, we have the public investments, we talked about the state and the federal, but it is going to take a variety of different partners coming together, philanthropy, local government, and also the private sector has an important role to play as well. And our investments in Caring PA highlight those examples that businesses can do within their own companies to look at what are the benefits that they're providing, what are the ways in which they can support the field. And we also have great examples that we lift up through case studies, and you're going to hear about one that's happening in York in a few minutes. But before we go, I just wanted to talk about, an innovative solution. I was at the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Association conference yesterday, and, the challenges that we hear employees are facing are, with shift work and, not having drop-in care and things that are so challenging. But I wanted to, and you can certainly find this on Investments in Caring PA, but there is a partnership in Pittsburgh in which a home-based childcare provider now has a high-quality center in the first floor of the Pittsburgh City Housing Authority, in which they provide 24-hour care, drop-in care. So when the residents are getting job training or have interviews and have, finally get a position that may be shift work, they have access to quality childcare right where they live. And Duquesne University is the third partner that comes in and provides professional development to the providers to increase quality, and their students get the hands-on learning experience as well. So There are many examples of this type of work that's happening throughout the Commonwealth. And again, it takes multiple partners coming together with the broader picture to meet this significant community need for children, for families, for businesses, and for the economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea. We appreciate the information that you provided. Definitely necessary, and it does highlight the challenges that we continue to face here in York County. Now, I have the pleasure of having local experts, and I mean, this is the cream of the crop we have here. You know, I probably shouldn't even be sitting at this table with these gentlemen. But we want to take some time to talk about this a bit more. We have Peter Brubaker as one of 6 local members of the ELIC we talked about earlier, and has been a longtime friend of the Community Foundation. He and his wife, Meg, were early supporters of the foundation's work to support the expansion of high-quality, affordable childcare options in York County, or focus on future, as Jane shared earlier. As a business and community leader, Pete has been crucial in starting the York County Early Childhood Educator Awards program. Also, we have Brian Grimm. He is the president and CEO of the York Day Nursery. York Day Nursery is celebrating 90 years of providing high-quality early childhood education and care for children of working families of all income levels throughout York County. And to think Brian has been there the entire time. It doesn't look a day over 35. Wow. York Day Nursery now serves 180 children, ages 6 months to 5 years, from 2 locations. And as I shared earlier, we'll be expanding to serve even more. Welcome, Peter and Brian.
Thanks. Thank you, Adrian. When people ask, how did you get involved in early childhood education? My answer is, I didn't have a choice. My wife, Meg, has been involved virtually all her life as a teacher, advocate, board member, and volunteer. Over the years, she taught me the importance of high quality early childhood education for young children. My direct involvement started in 1994 when Focus on Our Future was formed as a joint venture between the United Way, the Community Foundation, and Penn State York. As Jane mentioned, the goal was to improve the accessibility, affordability, and quality of early child care education here in York County. At that time, there was only one accredited child care center. Most early childhood professionals were paid minimum wage, and there were no professional development courses available at local colleges. Working with a model for high quality developed by Penn State York, we estimated the gap between the annual cost of providing quality care to York County children ages 0 to 5 and the amount that families could afford to pay. Using what were admittedly heroic assumptions, we came up with a figure in excess of $60 million a year. While our methodology could easily be challenged, there was no question that it was a big number and that the gap could not be closed without a significant infusion of state money. That led me to join with business leaders from around the state who had formed the Early Care and Education Task Force. The group was motivated by the fact that Pennsylvania was one of only 9 states that had no money invested in early childhood. We lobbied first the Ridge administration and then subsequent administrations to invest more in our young children. In 2008, I was named to the newly formed ELIC by Governor Rendell. As Andrea pointed out, over the last 20 years, Pennsylvania has made a lot of progress. But the fact remains that we still have a problem, both in terms of the capacity and the quality of childcare available to York County families. In thinking about the problem, a key cause is the difficulty attracting and compensating qualified staff. While research has shown that having well-trained teachers is a key element of high quality, the economics of the business are such that child care centers cannot afford to pay competitive wages. As a result, the average wage for childcare staff is less than $11, and turnover is high as many teachers move on to public school jobs where they can earn as much as 3 times more. Early last year, we learned that the state had discontinued their Education and Retention Awards. This program provided cash awards to staff of Star 2, 3, and 4 providers based on education level, hours worked, and the star level of the program. Rewards ranged up to $3,100 for teachers and $4,100 for directors. The program was designed to encourage early childhood staff to continue their education and stay in the profession. For the fiscal year ended June 2020, the awards were granted to 55 programs in York County at a total cost of about $485,000. Our local ELIC group saw an opportunity and decided to replicate the discontinued Education and Retention Awards. We were motivated by the fact that the cost was a manageable number, that a structure was already in place, and that there was significant local interest in addressing the child care dilemma. To accomplish our objective, we formed a public-private partnership, including the Community Foundation, who was acting as fiscal agent, child care consultants, the Early Learning Resource Center for our area, who was administering the program and distributing the awards as they did for the ERA program, the York County Board of Commissioners, who are providing funding using the American Rescue Act funds, and local foundations and individuals who have a long history of supporting high-quality early childhood education. Both the Community Foundation and child care consultants have agreed not to charge a fee for their services, so 100% of the money raised is available for teacher awards. The program is controlled by a committee, including 3 representatives from the Community Foundation and 3 from the ELIC. We established a goal of $1.5 million to fund the program for 3 years. Commitments currently total over $1.3 million. This figure includes $300,000 from the Heinz Endowments in Pittsburgh. Heinz has a history of supporting early childhood initiatives in York County, dating back to Focus on Our Future. They are interested in learning more about the program with a potential goal of replicating it in Allegheny County. Although it's early days, we're pleased with the initial results. The first year, we distributed $458,862 to 311 individuals in 63 programs, approximately half for-profit and half nonprofit. We estimate that these teachers reach over 4,000 children. To be eligible, teachers must have the Child Development Associate credential at a minimum. Awards were made throughout the county to programs in 20 different zip codes. The committee feels it's important to monitor the success of the program. To that end, child care consultants has agreed to track a number of metrics, including staff education level, staff retention, and the star level of participating programs. Given their position as the Early Learning Resource Center for 13 counties in central Pennsylvania, they will be able to compare changes in these metrics for the York County providers to data from counties which do not offer a similar award. Turning to 2023, we are considering expanding the program to include more personnel and higher awards. If the program demonstrates positive outcomes, we hope to continue it indefinitely. While the Early Childhood Educator Awards are a significant step forward, it's important to remember that they don't solve the problem of our child care staff not being properly compensated. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer questions at the end, and I guess I turn it over to Brian.
Great. Thanks, Pete. Thanks everyone for having me. We were joking around when we were talking about what we were going to do here, and I was going to be like the live reporter, from the front lines. Hey, there's been 2 call-offs today, 1 COVID case, and our food delivery truck is delayed, but we are going to be all right today. We're going to stay open. Things have been challenging, no doubt. So I guess we want to talk a little bit about why it works for York Day right now. And, we talked about being around for 90 years. In doing the research for our celebration, one thing is held true over the entire time, and you're going to hear it throughout my whole spiel here, is that York Day only works because of a balance of public and private support. Our answer to the childcare issue isn't to raise tuition, to underpay our teachers so that we can make a profit or subsidize other services that are provided by our organization. Our answer is to invest every dollar and every ounce of energy we have into providing the high quality care for our families and our students, and nothing else. We do this by diversified income, again, private and public funding avenues, thinking outside the box. We're working to finding ways through strategic planning and strategic thinking to build our endowment, to create some curriculum support, some back office support, contractual relationships, on-site childcare. We know the ability for businesses to recruit, retain, and stabilize their workforce correlates highly with access to childcare. Smart employers are recognizing that helping their workers with childcare is a mutually beneficial investment. So what are we going to do to be at the front of the line? Andrea talked a little bit about federal funding, and to be quite frank, that is the solution. Lasting sustainability will only occur from state and federal legislation, policy, and funding changes. That's it. Advocacy is focusing on understanding the value of the return on investment in childcare and what that has on a society as a whole, the children, the families, economies, et cetera, et cetera. It all starts with us. You know, we subsidize so many other things in this country, whether it's agriculture, energy, airlines, but we don't subsidize arguably one of the most important social goods, and that's high quality childcare for all working families. This is why YCCF dollars, York County Community Foundation dollars, and private dollars are so critical. Pete talked about the Educator Awards. Excuse me. On average, our staff, around $1,500 was not given to them during that process. And they were essential workers, right? They were the reasons why the nurses were able to go to work, maintenance workers, sanitation workers. They were able to go to work to take care of the ill because we had people to take care of their children. So we were the frontline workers, and they weren't rewarded. They were actually, the bonuses were taken away. A great example of private dollars stepping up to meet the need and with those grants. And we're fortunate to have that kind of support in York County. This was not a statewide thing, and I'm sure it contributed to a lot of the issues across the state of people leaving the field. So, you know, kudos to us for figuring that out, and Pete and that group. We hear about the teacher shortage in K through 12. Well, imagine what ECE is dealing with when we could pay them half of what their school districts pay with similar credentials. We knew as an organization, York Day, if we're going to sustain, if we're going to expand and face the needs of this community, we need teachers and we need to pay them. Cue private funding again. The York County Community Foundation, other founders, our funders stepped up, and we were able to open our York Tech location back in November. We put a a high quality center in a technical school that has students who are interested in the field. This doesn't just help York Day, it also helps the industry as a whole, having teachers ready to go right out of high school. So we're grateful for that funding as well. Lastly, through some Thrive Grant funding, as Adrian spoke to, and other private funding, we're able to work with the Red Lion School District to open a pre-K classroom later this year in their Windsor Manor Middle School. So we're excited about that. All made possible by some creative thinking, and you guessed it, private dollars. Right now, the only solution to provide high quality care at a high level for the working poor to middle class families is private support. And until there's systematic change, this is how we make it work. So I'm happy to take any questions as we keep going here.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you both, Pete and Brian, for that. And again, I definitely understand personally the importance of having high quality childcare. You know, as a father who has two younger kids, I wouldn't be able to work every day. The pandemic definitely created some challenges when we were all sent home to work. And, you know, you had your kids there, childcare centers weren't even open, you know, but the reality is not everyone has the ability to pay for high quality childcare. You know, a lot of folks are forced to require a relative, an aunt, an uncle, or grandma. And while we appreciate it, you know, is that child getting what they need? And oftentimes, you know, is that care even going to be consistent? You know, the first couple of days, auntie doesn't mind watching the kids, but then once she sees how, you know, how challenging it is, things can change. And now that person is in trouble with their job, a job they could have just started, because childcare isn't consistent. So we definitely find that to be a challenge. So a couple of questions that have come in, how can, donors in philanthropy help with these efforts to close this gap, to ensure that high quality childcare is available and teachers are compensated at a level in which they want to stay? So if the three of our panelists could weigh in, that would be awesome.
Well, I'll jump in. Our program is in its infancy, and we hope to be able to expand it going forward. So as I mentioned, the Community Foundation is the fiscal agent. So donations can be made to the Community Foundation and earmarked for the Educator Awards. And we would be happy to use that money to put more money in the pockets of our York County early childhood educators.
Yeah, just to echo, to be able to count on those bonuses for 3 to 5 to 10 years would be very beneficial to recruitment and retainment. We could say, we might get you to, we start at $15 an hour, but with this bonus that you're going to get for the next 5 years, if we do what we need to do, you'll have a higher rate. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Andrea?
Yes, and I also just need to re-emphasize how important, all of these different components of supporting the field really are. And so with the York County Community Foundation really elevating this conversation, providing the data to donors and giving the conduit for donors to be able to, direct their dollars to these larger scale initiatives, I think is just phenomenal. Because again, like Brian said, federal dollars are the key, but we need to look for increased state investments. We need philanthropy at the table. We need the private sector at the table. There really needs to be this data-driven approach to not only stabilizing the system, but sustaining and advancing.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm gonna jump back to Brian, because as he started, it may have said a bit of humor, but Brian, take us into, the day at, York Day Nursery. What are some of those challenges that, you and your staff have to deal with on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, just in the past 2 years, just with the sickness alone, diagnosing, understanding, if a children's sick, it's not always just COVID, it's other sickness as well. They have to go home. Our teachers have been getting sick. We got to pull from other classrooms. We got to share teachers. It's really been a scramble. And, we're not even talking about the other issues like the lack of food or the supply lines that we can't even get a truck delivery on time most of the time. So we're just scrambling, running to Sam's Club. Our art director, Sabrina, has done a great job of, oh my goodness, we're out of milk. We got to run to the store. We got to do this, all taking her out of the building, out of the classroom. It's really been a struggle. And luckily for us, we have the staff that we can share, that we can support when 2 or 3 people go out. Because now it's not just one person's out for a week, right? It's one person, and they come back, and then another person goes, and it just keeps growing and growing. And before you know it, we got 6 teachers out, half the classroom sick. So how are we dealing with that and making sure our families are safe and doing what we need to do to provide them the care so that they can go to work?
So does that then cause classrooms to close? Meaning you have to alert parents, hey, you can't bring your kid today because we don't have enough teachers.
Yes. And, Andrea spoke to that number. Was a 3.47 billion lost in childcare at the Commonwealth level alone, because of those issues, because of being able to close the classrooms, because teachers having to call parents and saying, hey, come pick them up. You got to leave your work during the middle of the day. And unfortunately, some of the employers don't have that kind of flexibility for their staff, and it's cost some folks jobs, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, especially a lot of your first, your frontliners, folks who have to work at grocery stores, or folks who, don't have the ability to work remote, where you physically have to be there. That can definitely present some challenges. So when we talk about the affordability, how much does typical childcare costs, per week or per month, however way you want to look at it?
So we know that the high quality care costs are anywhere between $10,000 and $12,000 a year.
But what do parents pay though? I think,
Well, per week,
Yeah.
is that what you're saying? All right, so we'll say around anywhere between $200 and $300 where we're at, depending on the age. But some centers can charge up to $500 a week for high quality care. Yeah, it's just not sustainable. It's more than 10% of their income, essentially, for most folks.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I can reflect back maybe 15 years and I was looking to take my son to a particular center, and it's very nice and well known. And when they told me it was, over $900 a month, and it's like, well, now I have to decide, do I want to pay for childcare or rent?
Yeah.
Because it's at the point where, the amount you have to pay for childcare
Yeah.
meets or exceeds what you'll be paying every month for rent. And that, of course, is a challenge for a lot of families.
It is. So more parents are staying home to take care of their children. A lot of folks will sacrifice quality for convenience, right? How terrible is that? Now we have to put little Brian in a classroom with 25 kids and one teacher, not the best ideal location for a child to learn and get ready for kindergarten.
Wow. What issues do you see as most readily addressed? What can we do? What can we do?
Well, we can continue to bridge that gap through the private funding, right? So we know we can't charge what it costs to do what we do. So how are we bridging the gap between what a parent can feasibly pay and what it costs us to do it? And that's where the private dollars are stepping up right now, is covering that gap for us.
yeah, I've always felt that one of the sort of missing elements in all this is the understanding of what high quality is all about and the difference that high quality can make in a young child. And, there's a lot of research out there now that just substantiates the fact, particularly for at-risk kids coming out of poverty and that sort of thing, that if they have high quality early childhood education, it just, improves their outcomes throughout their life. They're more likely to graduate from high school, they're more likely to go to college, they're going to earn more, in their lifetime. They're more likely to stay out of jail. And all these things are very important, but I don't think there's enough of an understanding at the parent level. And if you have that sort of parent understanding and demand, they're going to put pressure on their legislators, and then things are going to happen at the state and federal level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, again, need to emphasize that we need to let our state and federal legislators know that voters care about this issue. We have an instrumental, debate that's coming up at the end of October between our Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and Dr. Oz, and we are working very hard to get a question around supporting quality early learning and childcare in that debate question. I think Pete really said it well when parents are really putting the pressure on our legislators, when our businesses are communicating the economic impact, not only to Pennsylvania's economy, but to their own bottom line. I mean, there's so many different layers to this messaging. And when we're just in a, really dedicated mindset to communicate this frequently, and emphatically to our legislators, that's how the systems change is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so as we talk more about, the highest priorities, it sounds like, one aspect is ensuring that the legislators understand, what this need is, that we care about it, that it's important. Another aspect of it is, of course, wages, correct? And getting those wages increased, making sure that the centers have what they need to be sustainable, making sure that these programs we have, like with the bonuses and things, it's not just something that's a one shot, but it's something that's going to be consistent. Are there any other high priorities that high priority issues rather that we need to be considering, or we want to relay to our audience so they can get involved, maybe do like this call of action.
Well, I mean, we talk about access, a lot of the dollars that come in don't pay for new buildings, don't pay for additional space for people to provide pre-K counts programming, to provide the care. So there's opportunities there to expand services. Just thinking outside of the box, whether it's businesses providing care for their employees and how important that is. We talked a little about the third shift care out in Pittsburgh. There's plenty of demand out there. We need to find ways to bring in new dollars to create new services that can address the second shift care, the third shift care. That's just not there because we're still struggling to figure out first shift care. So however we can do that, I think would be beneficial to everyone, like we said.
But I was just going to say, I mean, I don't think it's complicated. I think, as I said earlier, it really just boils down to capacity and quality. There's just not enough of each. And I find it interesting that, this is a hot issue. We did have that federal legislation that would have made a tremendous impact that failed to go forward. But when we started this 25 years ago, there was just so much talk about brain development and the fact that 80 or 90% of brain development occurs by age 5. And that was a big motivator to trying to improve quality. Today, it's much more, the discussion is much more about the fact that, employers need workers and workers are having trouble getting childcare, which is having an impact on whether they're working, whether they can get to their job. So to me, it just boils down to those two issues, capacity and quality.
That's helpful. And Brian, just to circle back to what you said, then Andrea, I'll bring you right back in. I think it's important, where you say that a lot of times dollars can't be used for expansion in buildings. A lot of times, those aren't available. And this becomes very important, and why, we hope that donors understand and hear that and allow more flexibility with their use of their dollars, because that then helps for those kinds of projects. It's like I want to be bigger, but I can't find the dollars in order to expand to be bigger to help answer the call. So that's very important.
And if I could just add on top of that, once we do get bigger, that sustained funding needs to keep coming, right? So it's not just a nice shiny new object. It's how are we going to fund this for the next 5 years?
Brian, do you want to say a word about the EITC money and how that's used? Because it's possible a lot of people in the audience don't know about that.
So the EITC dollars currently are focused on pre-K counts aged kids only, so 3 to 5. If we could expand that down to the infants to age 5, that would be a huge benefit to our families who need scholarships, because just children the age of 3 to 5, they're not the only ones who need scholarship support. And all your EITC dollars that come in as your tax credit, they go directly into scholarship dollars for our families.
Yeah, I mean, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that stands for Educational Improvement Tax Credit, I believe. And this is a program that employers and I think individuals as well can use to target money to certain nonprofits, including early childhood, and they doesn't come out of their pocket, this comes out of their taxes. So if you have a business and you've got taxable income, you should talk to your tax professional about the possibility of giving Brian some money through the EITC.
We can walk you through it too. So.
And I will also, again, point the audience to Investments in Caring PA, because there are a plethora of resources that are available, including information on the pre-K EITC, tax credits for families. There are also several other tax credits that businesses can benefit from when it comes to childcare and supporting their working family. So again, we always try to look at this win-win, and childcare on multiple levels is that. And so we're very proud of our online toolkit for employers to be able to see that, again, there are multiple of puzzle pieces that together can form a broad solution to this problem. And we need to just be really proactive in thinking about what are those steps that community members, donors, businesses, families, providers can make to come together and find ways to support and sustain and advance the system.
Absolutely. So can the panelists, can you speak more to the preparedness of a child attending a high quality early learning center versus either not attending any program or not attending one that's high quality? What impact it's made for that child as they enter that K through 12 learning?
Andrea, do you want to do this one?
Sure. And then, I'll hand it off to you. I mean,
Yeah.
it really, quality is so key. And again, when I talk about those longitudinal studies, I mean, this is evidence-based. We have, the High Perry Preschool Project and the Abecedarian Project, where they look at children who had access to high quality, and they looked at, school readiness. They looked at third grade reading skills, because if you think about it, third grade is when children stop learning to read and start reading to learn. High school graduation rates, cost savings, return on investments when it comes to incarceration, teenage pregnancy, addiction. And the key components of quality are, the teacher qualifications. I mean, we've heard that over and over today, that the higher the degree of the early childhood educators, the stronger the outcomes are for children, because the educators are skilled in developmentally appropriate practices. And for children, that's learning through play, right? Having vibrant environments. When we look at quality, the environment is a key piece of that, health and safety at a very fundamental level. But, when you actually go into a high quality center and you look around the room and you see how literacy is, immersed in the block building section, and that housekeeping section, and how STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and arts, if you're talking about STEAM, is just integrated into the curriculum. There is a curriculum. Like I always say, I'm not one to think about tattoos, but there's a part of me that wants to get a tattoo that says, quality childcare is quality early learning. Maybe you can join in with me on that, but I'll tell you, because
I'll do it if you do it.
that'll enlighten up the annual meeting, won't it? But it really is, it is true. And so when we think about, when you have an infant and toddler curriculum in which there's intentionality in the way that those children are being cared for, the stability of relationships, but that curriculum is aligned to the pre-K curriculum, which is aligned to the K through 12 curriculum in the education system. So, there are so many components that come into quality, and it can't be, stated enough how critically important that is when we're looking for, to the outcomes for children. And our teachers need to be compensated, and so that they can devote themselves fully to that. And I will also say, and I think this is incredibly important too, when we come to cost savings, is in quality centers, the early childhood educators are incredibly aware and mindful and are assessing developmental milestones. So when there's children who may have some delays, we know that early intervention is key, early detection. And so when those children, because of the fact that they are in a quality center, have some of these concerns and delays identified early, and even social emotional concerns, those providers are able to connect those children and families to supports that can help with different therapies and interventions and supports. So then those children are entering kindergarten with those already taken care of, and they're much more likely, to be successful moving on because they've had that opportunity to receive early intervention services. And again, that's a cost savings. When we talk about return on investment, special education costs are another factor that's thrown into that return on investment. You know, you'll hear everything from $1 invested in quality early learning yields anywhere from $7, and I've heard up to like $27 in cost savings for all of those things that we've talked about. So you can't tell I'm passionate about quality at all. So, you know, if you have, Brian, if you have anything to add to that, please.
Well, we know for the data tells us that a child who doesn't go through a high quality center starts school a year behind. So just think about that. A kindergartner showing up and already being behind a year to his developmentally equal peers. And that just, again, it starts the cycle of remedial training. And we know they don't catch up when they're in high school. They don't ever get them back before they graduate. Dropout rates go up, drug use goes up, obesity rate goes up. Everything starts really essentially with how they're getting that initial beginning in kindergarten. So the quality is very
Interesting because you often hear people say it's not how you start, it's how you finish. But in this instance, it really is how you start.
Yeah,
You know what I
Good
mean?
point.
And so some things, you know, this is the football game, you can catch up at the end, you know, literally here, you know, a bad start
yeah,
really can send things downhill very quickly is what I'm hearing.
yeah, it gets ugly quick. Yeah. That sounds like it's your new tattoo, Andrea. That's the one.
Another question we can jump into for a couple of minutes, and as we look to wrap up here soon, we want to be respectful of the time. And if we do have more questions that come in, we'll probably end up doing this. If you want to log off at 9, you can, but we may just keep the panelists here just to talk a bit more as the questions continue to come in. And thank you all for your questions. Keep them coming. This is a great dialogue. So what can we do in terms of workforce development to create a better career path for students into childcare? You know, will it take increasing compensation? I know that's going to be a part of it, but what other things can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think our example at the York County School of Technology is a good template of how we can get kids in high school interested in the field. Creating career paths. You know, we've had 2 teachers who just celebrated over 20 years of service at York Day Nursery. You got to keep them engaged. You got to give them something to work towards. Providing additional supports, whether that's in getting their degrees, you know, higher education, whatever it is, giving them the leave time they need to be able to do that. Again, enticing these younger folks who are just kind of thinking about whether this is their field, giving them in classroom experiences with the children, with the teachers who know what they're doing and do it at a high level so they can mimic, learn, and grow their own desire and passion to be in the field. I think that's a good start, you know.
Yeah, I think there's no question in my mind that there are a lot of excellent teachers out there, dedicated teachers out there. But the reality is, unless they've got another source of income, specifically, you know, a spouse that has a good job, you know, it's just really difficult to make a career in early childhood education. You know, if you're a single parent, I mean, how are you going to do that? Making $11 an hour. So, you know, the compensation has to change if it's going to become a career path that's has broad appeal.
You know, and we've made significant strides in the apprenticeship model for early childhood education. One of the examples that I will highlight is in Berks County, where they are working on the pre-apprenticeship program with a community college, and the private sector dollars that come in to complement the public dollars that are supporting that education piece help pay for like laptops, transportation, childcare, and also then providing stipends to the educators as they, you know, complete their, whether it's their CDA, and then they get a bonus for staying on for 6 months afterwards and a year afterwards. So again, it's this public-private partnership, really having that earn while you learn model, increasing, you know, the capacity and the quality of early childhood providers in, and that's an example in Berks County.
Awesome. And Brian, you know, wrap up with the last question.
Yeah.
Are there volunteer opportunities at York Day Nursery for folks who want to come in, help, stuff like that? Is that a possibility?
Yes, the short answer is not really. Because of our accreditations and our requirements in the classrooms, it's hard to get volunteers in to help. But, there's things we can do. The building always needs support, whether that's, painting or cleaning up, things like that. We always welcome support or volunteers to help with different projects that way. Book drives, diaper drives, we've had those before. Other ways that if you want to come in and read, like, if you have your clearances and you want to come in and participate, we're happy to have guest readers in. Just again, trying to give our kids as many different experiences as they can.
You might mention what you mean by clearances.
So, you have to have all of your background checks, your state police, child abuse.
In other words, you just can't walk in off the
Yes.
street and volunteer. You've got,
Right.
it's a process.
It's a process. And even then, say we have to have teacher student ratios. You would not count in those ratios. So it's not really benefiting us to have a volunteer in the room just kind of moving around who isn't educated and understands, what we have to do on a daily basis for the children.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But conversation has been phenomenal. I want to
Thanks.
thank you, Andrea, Brian, Pete. We will have the slide deck available of this presentation. The full video will be sent to all the attendees in the next few days. So anyone wanting to utilize this information, especially those who have to write for grants, you have some data there so you can begin to make your case, and it's actually already been made for you. So definitely utilize that information. But thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about the critical community challenges which impact us all. If you'd like to stay for an extended question, we'll probably stay for another couple of minutes, just to give folks an opportunity if there's any other questions that filter in. And at YCCF, we will continue to learn more about the challenges facing our early childhood education programs and strive to find and be part of the solution. Quality, reliable early education is critical, and you keep hearing us say that because of how important it is. And we hope you agree with us. We are committed to leveraging grant making to fuel community transformation. We welcome you to partner with us as we work as a community to move families from just striving to thriving. Please stay tuned for our next webinar. Thank you all for your attendance, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian.